So Boston just went up 2-0. And there's a lot of notes that I have from this game because this is a game where I was really interested to see what type of adjustments we would get from Dallas and how Boston would respond to those adjustments. Um, so I was going into this game looking with more of an analytical mindset, whereas in game one I was kind of just trying to see like, okay, how are these teams going to be feeling each other out? Because I didn't expect too much from the Mavs in game one because we know that Jason Kidd likes to make game one a feeler game usually, and then try to like you know what I'm saying make adjustments from there. So I wasn't expecting them to win game one. Game two was a game though, especially. With the way they lost game one, that I thought game two was a really, really huge momentum type of game for Dallas, and they just lost 105-98. They had a great run. They had a 9-0 run. It was cutting. They cut it to one of my homeboys just texted rest versus Mavs, bro. Like cap, bro, cap. But anyway, they cut it to five at one point, and then Derek White had the play of the game. The games him and Jaylen Brown combined. I don't really know if it was a. I don't really know what to call it. It was like Derek White kind of blocked it, but then it also like PJ Washington kind of like bricked it off the rim, but that was mostly because of the Derek White block. All I'm gonna say is Derek White play of the game. That led to them slowing it down in transition, and then Jaylen Brown getting a very 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 clutch layup to seal the game to end all of that momentum that Dallas had just got on that 9-0 run. That was beautiful by Boston, and this is another thing that's happened in this series that I've seen, that I've continued to see is Boston is able to withstand the runs. Boston is able to when Dallas goes on those runs, like Dallas when they went on that run to cut it to I think 8 in the third quarter of game one, and then in this game Dallas had that 9-0 run in the fourth, and then they had some runs. I think I want to say it was like second quarter. I want to say they had some runs where they were doing great things. And Boston is just able to not sustain it. What's the word I'm looking for? They're just able to outlast. They're just able to say, okay, we're going to let them go on this run, but we're not going to do what we did against Golden State in 2022, where we let up like a 22-0 run. We're going to stop them, and it matters. We're not going to let the momentum get too high. We're going to call our timeouts. We're going to score easy buckets. We're not going to rely on stupid things. We're not going to rely on ISO ball. We're just going to wait, and we're going to wait them out because we know our defense is really good, and we're not worried about our offense. And that's what they have done with these Dallas runs. Is they've just been able to deal with them. Honestly, is the best thing I could say. They've literally just been able to deal with them. And I have so much to talk about from this game. But I'm gonna start from. Do I start from the back, like from the? I'm gonna start from the beginning. And early in this game, it was and this was a theme throughout the whole game. Terrible shooting for Boston. They could not hit a three, and this was what a lot of their critics were. This was the one question that I've even had about Boston recently, or not recently, throughout the season, is their lack of when they can't hit the three, are they going to be able to win those games? What are they going to be able to do? Well, we've seen what they've been able to do when their threes aren't really going down is they play lockdown defense. Well, that's tough against a team like Dallas where they have Luka, but they were able to lock down everyone except for Luka. What they did was exactly what JJ Redick said right before the game. If you were listening to the broadcast, he said they're going to allow Luka, they're going to allow Kyrie, and they're going to stop everyone else. Well, that's a lot easier to do when Kyrie's not doing a damn thing, because Kyrie went out there for the second game in a row and did not show up when it matters most. And I said this in the last video, if you go watch, or I might not have said it, but I said something similar to it. I said, Kyrie, you cannot have a stinker game, then talk trash about the Boston crowd, and you definitely cannot follow that up with another stinker game. And this one, 7 of 18, 0 for 3 from 3, 2 of 2 from the line, 16 points, a -3 with 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, and 4 fouls. Not good enough, especially when Luka's out there after where a lot of people last game were saying, is he hurt? What's he going to do? He was questionable on the injury report. Luka goes out there and is the only source of offense that you had. PJ Washington didn't have a bad game. He had a bad shooting game, but he didn't have a bad game. He had a bad like 3-point shooting game, not like shooting from the field overall. This was a game where you need Kyrie Irving to show up. It ended up being a 7-point loss. It was a close game for the entire game, but especially in the first half. This was a game where if it was not for Luka Doncic's offense in the first half, they would not have been close. I personally believe that at halftime, if Luka wasn't carrying, they would have been down by at least 10, and that's without Tatum having a good game, and that's without Boston shooting well. That's without Boston shooting the three well at all. This is what the critics were talking about. They ended up 10 of 39 from three in this game, where last game they had 7 guys hit multiple threes. This game they had 2. It was Jrue Holiday, who was 2 for 4. Jrue Holiday was the best Celtics player on the floor for this game. You can argue between him and Jaylen Brown, because Jaylen Brown, you know what I'm saying, but Jrue Holiday offensively was the best Celtics player for this game. He was dominating in the post. He was dominating in the paint. He was just, and we knew that was something that could happen, but he was doing it not just against smaller guys. Like there was times PJ Washington was on him in the post, or Gafford, and he was just finishing over them or finishing through them. And it's like, Jrue Holiday in this game was phenomenal. They had 2 guys, like I said, hit multiple threes. Derek White was 4 of 10, so he didn't shoot very efficiently, but that's still 40%. When you have a guy that's like your 4th, 5th option that can do that, that's really, like, that's insane. That's elite right there. And then, You had Drew Holiday, who was 2 of 4. Now, let's talk about Drew Holiday. 11 of 14, 2 of 4 from 3, 2 of 2 from the line, 11 rebounds, 4 of them offensive, with 26 points and a +6 on the plus minus while guarding Kyrie Irving for most of the game. Drew Holiday. In a game where you needed it most, in a moment where you needed it most, Jaylen Brown did show up in the end. He had some clutch buckets. He played some great defense. He's continued to get steals on Luka Doncic, made life tough for him. You're not gonna ever stop Luka. Like I said, he had 30 again. Like he might have. Did he have a double double again? Like let's see. Yeah, he had a triple double. He had 32, 11, and 11. Like you're never gonna stop him. But then what Jaylen Brown did, he made him shoot a little, like not inefficiently because he was 12 for 21, but he made his shots tough. Luka Doncic, another thing that we need to talk about. The free throws for this whole team were terrible, but we're not going to get there yet. Luka Doncic had 8 turnovers. A lot of that was Jaylen Brown on him, ripping him before even half court. It was them. It was Boston making him uncomfortable. It was Boston making it to where Dallas could not get any offensive ball movement. Luka had his 11 assists and Kyrie had 6, so they were generating a lot more ball movement than last game, but a lot of that was because Boston shots weren't going in, so they were getting a lot more of these kind of movements and like assist type, assist chances, and the fast break or off of Boston misses, right? Whereas last game those threes were going down at a much better clip. And this game they weren't, and Dallas was able to make more ball movement because of that. That's a great job. There's a lot of things I still have to say, and for me, this is a game that proved to me Dallas can't beat they cannot beat Boston in a 7-game series. They can't. If you can't win this game, when Luka Doncic does what he does, a 32-point triple-double, when Jason Tatum goes 6 of 22 and 1 of 7 from 3, when Jason Tatum has 3 turnovers, 2 fouls, and only 18 points, now he had his 18, 12, and 9. He filled the stat sheet, and now what he did was he made up for his terrible shooting night with phenomenal playmaking. He was beating everybody off the dribble, no matter who they put in front of him, whether it be Derrick Jones, PJ Washington, Luka. He was beating them off the dribble. He was getting into that paint, and what Boston was doing, what Dallas was doing was they were still, even if there was 5 shooters on the court, which there always is with Boston, 9 out of 10, maybe 9.5 out of 10 times, there's 10 shooters on the court. 5 shooters on the court for Boston. What they were doing was they were still collapsing the big to help in the paint. Well, what that's doing is that's allowing Jason Tatum to be a playmaker. He's a very, very good playmaker. He's not like Jaylen Brown, where his playmaking is not as great. He's a great playmaker, so he was beating them, and if he wasn't getting the layup opportunity, which he was missing a lot of them, if he wasn't getting that layup opportunity, he was getting an and one at the basket. He was passing it out and getting those assists that he ended up with 12. I think he had 10, either at halftime or right after halftime, he got his 10, something like that. Not Drew Holiday. My apologies. I need to calm down. But Tatum was he was not having a good shooting game, and that's not good because it's like that's the second game in a row where you haven't been able to beat them when Tatum isn't showing up offensively. That's not a good sign. Now, things I believe will be different in Dallas. I think Kyrie will be able to play a little better in Dallas when that Boston crowd's not booing him every time he gets the ball. I don't care what you say. That Boston defense and that Boston crowd have bothered Kyrie. I don't care what he tries to say. Oh, he's at peace. I don't want to hear none of that, buddy. You've been terrible. I don't want to hear none of that. And I think this is really, really scary from Dallas because this is a game where you have to win. When these guys are shooting 10 of 39, when they're shooting 25.6, basically 25% from the 3-point line, y'all have to win this game. And here's why they couldn't. Because yet again, a lot of questions that were about Dallas was could they generate enough threes? Well, they shot 26 of them, which is 13 less than Boston did, and they only made 6 of them. They shot 23% from 3. And the biggest reason that I think that they ended up losing this game was because even though this game was close for the majority of the game, they could never capitalize on their opportunities at the free throw line. They ended up going 16 of 24 from the free throw line. One of my homies texted Rest versus Mavs. They shot more free throws. They just don't make them. 16 of 24 versus 19 of 20. That's not refs versus Mavs. That's Mavs versus themselves. They can't make the free throws. Luka Doncic himself was 4 for 8 from the line, 4 for 8 from the line, 4 of 9 from 3. You gotta make these free throws. You got Daniel Gafford going 1 of 4 from the line. These are guys these are free throws that you have to make. 66.7% hitting 2/3 of your free throws in a close game in Game 2 on the road of the NBA Finals when you're already down 0-1 isn't. It's not good enough. Boston made life difficult for every single offensively. Boston made life difficult for every single Maverick that was not named Luka. But the one consistent piece of offense that Dallas had, but when it wasn't just Luka ISO and cooking up doing what Luka does, it was attacking Porzingis in the pick and roll. Now let's talk about Porzingis because once again, Porzingis was a very consistent guy on both sides of the ball. But late in the fourth quarter, he looked hurt. there was this play where it looked like he might have re-aggravated that calf injury. That is really, really scary if you're Boston, because Kristaps Porzingis has been amazing on both sides of the ball. And this one, he finished with another 2 blocks and 12 points as a plus 12 on the plus minus, going 4 of 7, and that was without him even hitting a 3. He did not hit any of his 3 threes tonight, and he still was very impactful in his 23 minutes of play. And that 9-0 run was without Porzingis on the court for the majority of it, if not all of it. That was after Horford came back in and Porzingis was either in the locker room or on the bench getting tended to because of that injury. That's a scary sign for Boston, because they went on their best run of the game with Porzingis out. And I think in that third quarter run in game 1, it was also when Porzingis was on the bench, because it was the start of the third quarter and Porzingis has been coming off the bench. That's not great. We got to see what Porzingis' availability is going to look like, but I think the next game's a Wednesday, so he's got a few days to rest. We're going to see. Let's just pray, because calf injuries are tough. And again, they thought it was the type of injury KD had. Well, remember, KD ended up tearing his Achilles after a quarter and a half of play after coming back. So that's scary. That's really, really scary. And like I mentioned already, Luka's turnovers hurt Dallas. He finished with 8. They finished with 15 as a team. Now, Boston didn't do great with the turnovers either, because Tatum had 3 and Jaylen Brown had 6, but they only had 10 as a team. So it was like 9 of them came from those 2 guys. That's something you can live with when you're forcing 15 of them, and 8 of them alone are from Luka Doncic. That's something, and that's especially scary, because Luka wasn't even bringing the ball up the court all the time. A lot of the times they were having guys like PJ Washington, they were having Kyrie, they were having these different guys bring the ball up the court, and he's still committing all these turnovers because Jaylen Brown's doing a phenomenal job on him. Now, let's talk about Maxi Kleber too, because Maxi Kleber was a guy that I expected to get more minutes coming into this game. That was the one adjustment that I knew, or that I really, really expected Jason Kidd to make, was Maxi Kleber to go out there, because one, it increases the switchability of the defense, because you can't switch Gafford and you can't switch Derek Lively onto perimeter players like you can with Kleber, and it also makes it to where you can play 5 out a little more, because he's a better shooter than Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford are, right? That's obvious. Today, 16 minutes, 0 of 4, 0 of 2 from 3, 0 points, 4 fouls. Only 2 rebounds. Was getting cooked on defense. Maybe we won't see too many Maxi Kleber minutes. Now, we'll see, because I do think that that's something they're going to need, is like the Maxi Kleber minutes to be good minutes if they're going to have any chance of defending this 5 out, and then on offense being able to play their own 5 out to kind of open up the paint for Luka, for Kyrie, for these guys, because Kyrie is getting all of his points right now in the mid-range and in the paint. Like he had, like I said, 16 points. He had 7 shots. Well, all 7 of those shots were 2-pointers. And the other 2 points came from free throws. So it's like all of his shots are coming on those mid-range fadeaways, those lays at the rim, those floaters, that type of stuff. Where it's like, if you can play 5 out, that kind of gets a 7-3 guy like Porzingis, 7-2, 7-3 guy like Porzingis, or an Al Horford or Jason Tatum, or these guys out of the paint a little more often. So that's something. But then the problem is they can never really consistently play 5 out without anyone getting help, because Boston is continuing to allow their wings to shoot. Boston's allowing Derrick Jones Jr. and Josh Green and PJ Washington and Dante Exum, who's a guard, but still, when he came in the game, they're allowing these guys to shoot. So you can never really play a consistent 5 out. But Kleber is somewhere where you can have at least one of those bigs, one of those forwards like a Jason Tatum, or like a Horford, or like a Porzingis, where whoever's on him, you can have them at least. You know that you'll have that person at least on the perimeter a little bit, helping a little less. But honestly, I'm not sure what much more Dallas can do. Now, the health of Porzingis is a big factor, and I do think Kyrie will play a little better in Dallas, or at least they will need him to play better in Dallas. But I mean, there's really, I don't know. Like, I don't know what they can do, because even when they started to get some momentum at the end of the third, guess what happens? Peyton Pritchard hits his first shot of the series, and he ends the third quarter with a half-court buzzer beater bank shot. Like, I don't know what more you can realistically do if you're Dallas. This was a really bad Kyrie game, so that's the one plus, is that you can pray Kyrie has a better game. But the problem with that is, what if Jason Tatum starts to show up? If they play like they played in game 1 and Jason Tatum shows up offensively, there's nothing Dallas can do. There's nothing Dallas can do. This was one of those games where we all going into it said they're probably going to need to have Kyrie and Luka both close to 30. Well, Luka did his job. Kyrie didn't do his. Kyrie, you can't be talking. Now, media hasn't happened yet. I started recording this with literally like 10 seconds from the game. Like, so media hasn't happened yet. I don't know. These guys are literally probably in the shower right now. The media literally has not happened. So I don't know if Kyrie's going to talk trash about Boston again. But boy, you better not. Because after you did it in game 1 and then came out here and played just as bad in game 2 and lost yet again. I love y'all. Thank y'all for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed this breakdown, man. Like I said, this was a little more of an analytical X's and O's type breakdown. I don't go too much into the X's and O's, but this was a little bit more of that, and I just love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed, stay praying. Keep God first, always. And, yeah, that's it, man. Game 3, I think, is on Wednesday, so looking forward to that.